To the most recent episode of 23rd Mind TV. As always, if you're listening to this on the Highbrow Low Life stream with Rendering Unconscious podcast and the new Tripartisan radio is held, you can find a video for this at YouTube, at Trapart Films YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/C/Trapart Film. And you should join us there because then you can see this gorgeous painting that we're sitting in front of. Carl, want to tell them about it?
Yeah, it's a recent acquisition. We were recently back in Stockholm for a quick trip. And we got this painting from the wonderful artist Gabriella River Eriksson. And it's a commission, and it's a picture, an image that will be used for the cover of my first ever novel in Swedish that will come out in May, and it's called Codex Nordica. And Gabriella is one of our favorite artists. She's so talented, and it's an honor to have this image for that book. So we thought it would be a good idea to be seated underneath it because it looks really good and it has a nice frame too.
Absolutely. And you should also check out her website and her blog. She's got some great posts up there, and we'll link to those in the text accompanying this episode. She recently wrote a post about our good friend Gustav Broms and his exhibition in Stockholm, which we also saw. Should we mention a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Gustav is another dear friend and also wonderful Gesamt artist in so many ways, photographer, filmmaker, performance artist, writer, just incredibly immersive and brilliant in his expressions. And for those of you who really know our work, you know that one of the first films in the Trapart series was actually with Gustav, and that film is called The Mystery of Life, and it's available for free on our YouTube channel. So that's well worth checking out. And this most recent performance, exhibition, film screening in Stockholm is like a 10 or 12 day performance, like 8 hours each day. It's remarkable to see.
17 days.
17 days even, yeah. No, it's fantastic. It was so magical to be immersed in someone else's visions in that way, and also exhibited on two of the walls in that space were the images that we have also published recently in the first issue of the Tripartisan Review, which also contains some images by Gabriella. So that's well worth getting if you want to see some beautiful, beautiful, intelligent and magical art.
Yeah, and I think we should watch the trailer for your film about Gustav.
Why not? Let's do it. This is the trailer for an Trapart, Gustav Broms. The film is called The Mystery of Life. Swedish artist Gustav Broms has, since the early 1990s, developed a symbolic language in order to help him understand his own being. On an adventurous journey stretching over photography, filmmaking, sculpting, collaging, music making, and on to performance art, his artworks and the process become pieces of a puzzle that constitute not only the human being called Gustav Broms, but also human life itself in general. The grand scale of Broms' ambitions signals a willingness to share his highly experimental attitude and its findings with other people. Thus, his persona as an artist grows into something more ambitious, yet at the same time more undefined. the multifaceted expressions of his work seem to contain the very same theme, the very same question. Where exactly lies self in the human being? Who exactly are we, and which tools do we need to find out? Yeah, that was the trailer for The Mystery of Life, my film about Gustav Broms. It's well worth watching. You can watch it for free on our YouTube channel, and also check out Gustav's work in general. There's a link to his website in the liner notes for this show.
Absolutely. And speaking of exhibitions and events, we should talk about the Psychartcult series. Actually, we'll talk about it later on in the spring. But later this year, it looks like we're going to have our next big Psychartcult conference, prompted by Gabriella, actually, who asked us when the next one would be. And we said, well, the first one was in 2016. The second one was in 2019. It's 2022. Seems like it's high time. So we've actually already started putting that into the works, and we'll be talking about that more in future episodes. But for now, we also have our Psychoanalysis Art and the Occult series at Morbid Anatomy Museum, which is ongoing once a month. The next one we have is coming up this Sunday. We're having Peggy Nadramia, who's the High Priestess of the Church of Satan, and she's talking about the complete story, how Anton LaVey created his book, The Complete Witch, which also is known as The Satanic Witch, as it was published by Feral House a bit later.
That's right. So you don't want to miss that. It'll be an amazing, amazing story. And in our synergetic stew, it could also be interesting for you to know that Peggy's story about the complete witch, Satanic Witch, will also be published quite soon in the 12th issue of the Fenris Wolf, which I also hope will be a late spring release. So that piece will be in Fenris Wolf 12. And speaking of that, and speaking of our upcoming Psychartcult actual conference, when we have these conferences, the papers from the conferences turn into specific issues of the Fenris Wolf. And the first one in 2016 became Fenris Wolf number 9. And after a long hiatus of not being available, we have now made it available again. So also in a beautiful hardbound edition. So Fenris Wolf 9 is now finally available again via the Trapart webpage or through Amazon or wherever you buy books. So you should check that out, because it was quite a while that it was unavailable. So this one contains all the papers and lectures from the first Psychartcult conference in London 2016.
Yeah, and I actually put, for Rendering Unconscious podcast this month, since the last time we did 23rd Mind TV, I actually put up a lecture by Gary Lockman, because he was in the previous Psychoanalysis Occult event at Morbid Anatomy. So to promote that event, I put up his lecture, Why Was Freud Afraid of the Occult? And that paper is included in this book. And then before Fenris 12, we'll have Fenris 11 coming out late this spring. Yeah. And that's collected papers from our second conference, Rewriting the Future, 100 Years of Esoteric Modernism and Psychoanalysis, which was held in Merano, Italy.
Yeah, so what you really have to do is basically go to the Trapart homepage, trapart.net. That's trapart.net, and sign up for the newsletter, because then you will be informed immediately when there are new books coming out. And it's almost like there's a new book coming out every week now. So it might be a smart thing to do, sign up for the newsletter.
Yeah, so should we talk about the new books that have come out?
Well, why not?
Which one would you like first?
Let's begin with the Sacred Intent. Sacred Intent, the expanded edition, has been out for a while now, and it's a great read. People refer to it as a classic already, and I'm very happy about that. But recently, we made a hardbound edition of this book too, for those so inclined. So that's just basically it. Sacred Intent expanded edition, now available in a hardbound edition. And speaking of Jan and things going on there, there's a beautiful compilation. That is a compilation project that's been going on for a while, and I don't know if it's fully finished, but it will eventually be released on vinyl, CD too, I think. Now it's available on Bandcamp, and it's called Not in My Future, and it's care of Erototox Decodings, and it's a beautiful album with many artists, many of whom knew Jan or worked with Jan, made lovingly beautiful, sweet musical contributions and tributes. We have one piece in there called A Poem for the Poet, and I made a little video for that. So let's watch that, A Poem for the Poet for Genesis P-Orridge. Enjoy.
That time has come when time moves on amidst a brave creator, amidst a bold narrator of magics and journeys of loved ones now gone. The trip is just beginning. Just drifting, shifting shapes. Get a new suitcase. Travel in style. All of this is possible all of the time. Let's never forget the messenger. The message, the process, the temple, intricate details, intuitive twists, curved hand, crooked smile, Baba Mago Supreme, calling on the spirits to become who you are, with sacred intent. Undoubtedly, his name was Master. Undoubtedly, her name was Master. What a blessed honor to move on in your mischievous company. Loyalty does not end with death. You cut it up so well. Scissors and glue, scissors and glue. Your sparkling supernova express still shines somewhere. And here, and now. In the morning after the night, I fall in love with the light. First it was, then It knew it was, and that was it.
That was a poem for the poet in tribute in honor of Genesis P-Orridge from the compilation Not in My Future. You will find a link to the album in the liner notes for this episode.
Absolutely. And then the other book that Trapart has put out.
Yeah, it's called Amok, and it's by an American surrealist called Stephen Klein. And it's a very refreshing, energetic, funny, I would say mind-expanding book, short essays or texts that take you to very different spaces, head spaces, time spaces, space spaces. It's just a trip. Essentially, and Stephen Klein is a very talented writer, and he has a way of really luring you into his universe and shaking you around, shaking you up, and then tossing you out to the next little text. It's a wonderful read, funny, and it's also got some great photographs, and I would say one of the finest examples of contemporary surrealism that I have seen in a long, long, long time. So I'm very proud and honored to have published this book by Stephen Klein, Amok.
Yeah, and he's got a great Instagram page full of his collages, so I will also link to that. And he also sent those.
Yes, and also before we drift there, he's also, together with his wife, in Tripartisan Review, issue number 1. So we have this tendency to really collect everybody, but that's good. And also, Stephen and his wife Hazel make these beautiful little scenes, fold-ins, fold-outs, filled with collages, texts, poems, cut-ups, all kinds of stuff. It's really, really just wonderful stuff with titles like Diagram of Disaster, Sexual Geometry, Universal Psyche, The Crow, Unseen Powers, etc., etc., etc. It's just, again, an example of contemporary surrealism in the making. Someone is has the baton or the torch, and I think that Stephen Klein and his wife Hazel are good keepers of the faith or the fire, whatever you want to call it. It's really funny stuff. And as again, I would use the word mind expanding because a lot of it is intensely psychedelic and just, I don't know, invigorating in a very, very nice way.
Yeah, well, the unconscious is psychedelic.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you want to talk about next? We should talk about Tripartisan Radio.
Yeah, Tripartisan Radio. Last episode, we talked about Tripartisan Review, which has now been out for a while and is very successful, and people seem to appreciate it. It's, I don't know, eclectic art magazine or art book, whatever you want to call it. It's been wonderful. So in order to, in a similar way, push all these people, PR all these people that we really like and that we also publish in Tripartisan Review, but also like Stephen Klein in single volumes and books probably. We want to create a kind of a book culture, a book community, a book, I don't know, environment basically, where we can have dialogues about the things we like the most. Books are one of those things. So we just started with 2 episodes of the Tripartisan Radio as part of this media conglomerate we have now. And the first episode was me and Vanessa talking about our favorite book, It's Magic Monday every day of the week. Some of you may have heard about this before because we have talked about this in 23rd Mind TV, but there's an entire episode where we have a deep conversation about the whys and why nots of It's Magic Monday every day of the week, and also our goals and practices on Patreon. As you know, we have a Patreon and we're very active there in terms of communication and stuff like that. So we really enjoy that. And this is in a way a result of that labor, and it will be an annual thing. This summer, there will be a volume 2 of this book. So basically, that's the first episode of Tripartisan Radio. And in the second episode, we have focused even more on Vanessa. Yeah, and we talk about her writings, cut-ups, collages, books, book releases, again, in order to create this kind of literary community feel that's also been met by a great response and great feedback. So we'll just continue that. I have some beautiful guests lined up. Stephen Klein is one of them, and many other in our tightly knit community. But there will also be others. With the Fenris, for instance, is the real host of different people that we can talk to and that we will talk to. So basically creating a podcast presence or a radio presence of all these beautiful creative minds that we are proud and honored to be associated with.
Absolutely. And actually also since the last time we did 23rd Mind TV, we both joined TikTok. So you can find us both on TikTok now as well. I'm at Dr. Vanessa Sinclair 23, and you're at Carl Abrahamsson, yeah? And so you can see videos there as well. I'm putting clips of the podcast up there, different music videos that we've made, clips from these kinds of different books that we talk about. And actually you made like a little film clip about Tripartisan Review, I think, since our last 23rd Mind TV as well. So maybe we could look at that too.
Yeah, let's dive deeply into the Tripartisan Review.
Today I'm a proud publisher because the first issue of the Tripartisan Review just came out. It's an astounding anthology of contemporary art with integrity and intelligence. Collages, cut-ups, paintings, drawings, photographs, poetry, fiction, and a whole lot more. 200 pages, full color, filled with absolutely amazing art from today. You're going to enjoy it, so don't miss the Tripartisan Review, issue number 1. Get it today. Thank you.
Yeah, that was the little commercial clip for Tripartisan Review number 1. I hope you enjoyed it. You will, as you could see, find a lot of treasures in Tripartisan Review, and it's readily available at the Trapart site and also care of Amazon and all the other booksellers. So you should get that.
Absolutely. And on my podcast, Rendering Unconscious, over this past month, like I said, I had Gary Lockman on. I also recently interviewed Nina Antonia, who had this great book, Dancing with Salome, Courting the Uncanny with Oscar Wilde and Friends. And she, of course, is part of the Trapart family. This is a Trapart book that came out a couple of months ago. So I have a great interview with her on the Rendering Unconscious podcast. And then the next Psychoanalysis, Art and the Occult event that's in April, on April 24th at Morbid Anatomy online via Zoom, is going to be with Nina. She's going to be talking about this book, but also her other books as well, and kind of her whole writing journey. And then we also have with her Robert Podgurski, who is writing about Oscar Wilde for the Fenris Wolf, and he's talking about Oscar Wilde's worldview and kind of entering Oscar Wilde's mind. They both are coming at Oscar Wilde through kind of a magical spiritual perspective, which is really fascinating. So that's on April 24th. And then also on the podcast this month, I had a group of queer poets with Tom Bland, Jason Hoff, and Zai Valdez. And Zai actually sent his zine poetry is both the compass and the machete. So that's very cool. I can link to his Instagram as well. Tom Bland also has a book that's come out recently called Camp Fear on Bad Petty Press. And Jason Hoff has one in the works called Harsh Cravings. And if you follow me on Instagram, you've seen Jason's work because I repost his kind of collages all the time. They're fantastic. And then who else have I had the podcast? I've had Dwayne Monroe, who is in tech, and he talks a lot about what he calls AI propaganda, which I think is really important to think about. So definitely check out that episode. And then the most recent one is Nathan Dean, who talks about his kind of counseling practice, developing, integrating the arts and magic. So that's what I've been up to on Rendering Unconscious podcast.
Yeah, we're busy little bees. But we are also inspired in all our business by what other people are doing, you know, other publishers, other artists. It's a joy to be in this sort of feedback loop in a way and be inspired by other people. And it's always great to see other publishing companies working hard with creating books that, again, carries forth this torch of the past in a way that takes the baton and runs with it. I'm thinking specifically of companies like Timeless in France, who are just making these incredible works. Most recently, 2 works having to do with Genesis, and I can't even describe enough how much I recommend that you get these books. They are time capsules, documents, important historical records, and just inspiring art books in every possible way. So well made in terms of quality. And this one is called The Last Slogan, and it's based on an interview with the old Gen friend Jean-Pierre Tourmel by art historian and curator Nicolas Ballet, who incidentally is also in Tripartisan Review, #1. And it's just amazing stuff, personal mementos, images, photographs, correspondence, having to do with very great era Genesis P-Orridge, working with late TG and early Psychic TV and the Temple of Psychic Youth. It's just, I don't know, endlessly fascinating. And then this one is actually, it's called In Steel Grey Armor, and is a facsimile of a book that Jen made for a French collector and friend. So that in itself is so I don't know, inspiring to see work processes, rare work that's never been seen before. Yeah, pretty indescribable, actually. I'm blown away by these books still. I've had them for a while now, but it's just incredible. So check out Timeless from France. The link will be in the show notes. And get everything they do, because it's definitely worthwhile.
Yeah, they're really fantastic. Yeah. And they also have books out by Val Denham. They have Coil books out.
Files.
Gia Files. They have Coil books out that are also like facsimiles of their process. A Peter Christopherson photo book.
Annie
Bandes has a book as well. So they have published all our favorite people that we love.
Yes, absolutely. And they keep on doing it because there is luckily much archival stuff yet to be unearthed. And that's a great joy for us who are, constantly inspired by this kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to mention this book as well.
Yeah.
You're going to have to carry that. That's a big one.
Yeah. This is another beautiful book. It's, as you can see, it's big, not as big as the old Golden Dawn book that used to be called the Doorstopper edition, but it's this is a heavy book in many ways. It's René Le Forestier's book about the Bavarian Illuminati, translated and edited by our friend John Graham. And it is what it is, what it says here, the rise and fall of the world's most secret society. And of course, it is famous or infamous. It's been mythologized, it's been ostracized, scandalized, scapegoated, etc., etc. But what this book shows is that it's basically, as usual, a bunch of people, maybe one spark person or incentive taker, but usually a small group of people who create something together. And for the most, part, most of the time, it doesn't really lead to anything. But for very inexplicable reasons, some little groups have a capacity or maybe the magic to actually create change much, much, much later, again through both causality but also through the mythologizing and projections coming from other people. And as we know today, the word Illuminati and the Bavarian Illuminati, there's something almost eerie about it. It has integrated itself into the mindless yapping of conspiracy theorists, theorians, or whatever it's called, and at the same time they also hold a great respect for more serious occult scholars and groups and practitioners. So there's a lot to be said about this volume, but the main thing is that it's a volume that, despite its size, should really be read and studied, because it's an incredible study, beautifully translated from the French by John Graham. And I think I would say that this is a new staple of every serious occult library, basically.
Yeah, we love John Graham over at Inner Traditions. We love Inner Traditions. And they're the ones who published Carl's recent book, Anton, LaVey and the Church of Satan. And actually, his next book with Inner Traditions just came out for pre-order. So why don't you talk about that a little, Source Magic?
Yeah, absolutely. Source Magic will be out in February 2023, but it's now available for pre-order. It's a book that's very similar in nature to my book with Inner Traditions called Occulture that came out in 2018. Basically, it's an anthology of essays, lectures, private pieces, where I write about this favorite topic of mine, the intersection between art, culture, and the occult, basically occulture. And in that book, there are pieces about individuation, about the TV series The Prisoner, about Jungian archetypes, about the nature and importance of traveling in pilgrimage to places that mean a lot to you, and many, many, many other things.
The lecture you just did with Gary at Morbid Anatomy is part of that book on Derek Jarman.
That's right, about the magical techniques of Derek Jarman and our relationship with mortality, and there's a lot of stuff in there. So it's called Source Magic because there are also some themes in there that deal specifically with shamanism, which I argue or I think that's the real source magic and the magic of the source, where we come from, basically. So you should check out that book, and if you're so inclined and if you can't wait until it's physically out, you should buy that book on pre-order, and you'll have a pleasant surprise in February 23 when something pops up in your mailbox that you had completely forgotten about.
Yeah, and something that's kind of ideas based on is something that Nathan Dean and I talked about in the most recent Rendering Unconscious podcast, which is this idea that we were even talking about, how Alan Moore talks about this as well, where society's gotten more and more fragmented into all these different parts. And really the kind of main source used to be magic and art and medicine and science. It all kind of came from the same root practice, and then it developed into these different practices that have become more and more split off over time. So as Alan Moore talks about, it's time to start like bringing them kind of all back together and healing all of these divides instead of constantly endlessly fragmenting things.
That's right. We have been sent more stuff, but we're going to save what we have for the next episode of 23rd Mind TV, and hopefully by then we'll be all caught up. Or should I say, please make sure that we're never caught up. Just keep sending us stuff and we will talk about it here in the show, because we love receiving stuff, and it's inspiring for us, and we hope then that we can inspire more people by displaying your work, basically.
So is that it for today?
I think that's it for today. And
no, wait, there's one more thing we have to talk about. The tribute to Thomas compilation.
Absolutely.
There's actually 2 compilations
Absolutely.
that we have to talk about.
Yeah, you may have noticed or heard or read that my dear friend Thomas Tibert died in January. He was an essential component and my musical partner, both in White Stains and Cotton Ferox, and some solo projects also. Basically a friend since the mid 80s. So that was kind of sad to see that happened. You know, death always comes more or less unexpected, and this was a really sad affair. But there were many people who loved Thomas, and there are now 2 compilations that are honoring his memory. One is simply called Tribute to Tibbe, that was his nickname, and that's available on Bandcamp, and that will also be hopefully released on in a physical format at some point. I have a track in there actually together with Thomas. Thomas made the music, but it was never released, and I put my poem, my elegy, my poem for him on top of that music, so that's available there, and together with many other wonderful artists. And then the just recently came out volume 23 of Somber Sonics Dark Ambient series. So it's Dark Ambient volume 23 from Somber Sonics, which I think contains something like 23 contributions, each 23 minutes. So We're talking about a long musical journey or experience. And that entire volume is dedicated to the memory of Thomas Tibert, or Tibbe as we called him. So that's very sweet and very beautiful. And you'll find the links to that in the show notes.
Yeah, we have a track on that called Sweet 23.
Yep.
So now that's the end of this episode.
Yes.
We'll be back next month with more.
More of everything.
Until then.
Bye.